Running barefoot with a forefoot strike may actually give you enough resources to avoid getting a shin bone fracture as compared with running with a heel strike landing pattern in cushion-heeled running shoes. Researchers have been hard pressed to explain the core risk factors for the cause of tibial stress fracture, which is a shin bone fracture. In runners, not all runners are equally vulnerable to getting a tibial stress fracture, in that barefoot runners who mostly land on their forefoot when they run, may have a reduced risk of getting a shin bone fracture as compared with habitual shod runners who heel strike during running. This is because barefoot running may block or reduce the bad habits of running in cushion-heeled running shoes. For instance, the running shoe-induced mechanisms that may underlie the cause of tibial stress fractures, particularly in heel strike runners, are weak and stiff ankle joints, a higher than tolerable ground reaction force, which is a collision force generated between the body and the ground at touchdown during running. This force is often more intensive in heel strike runners than in forefoot strike runners. Weak and stiff plantar flexors is a problem too. The plantar flexors are a group of muscles that are integrated throughout the top of the foot and extend up the leg. However, when the plantar flexor muscles are weak, each foot strike during running may become more and more stressful on the shin bone, which may certainly raise the possibility of the development of a stress fracture on the tibial shaft or the shin bone. This is all according to reports in a 2015 study in the Journal of Applied Biomechanics, which is linked down below in the description box. It is well established that in the research, many heel strike runners who run in traditional running shoes may display higher levels of a ground reaction force at touchdown as compared with forefoot runners or barefoot runners. The higher the ground reaction force during running, the greater the abundance of potential stress on the shin bone. However, the interplay between running with a forefoot strike landing pattern while running barefoot may activate a wide range of neuromuscular responses and key reflexes that may help keep the ground reaction force at a much lower magnitude. There is also definitive evidence that the changes in ankle strength and plantar flexor strength is influenced by certain forms of footwear, such that the way the mechanical traits induced by running in cushioned-heeled traditional running shoes may manifest themselves in a way that may increase the susceptibility of the shin bone to become fractured during running. The problem with weak ankles and weak plantar flexors during running is that they may prevent the lower leg from adequately absorbing shock, especially the high shock that's generated during heel strike running. And if ankle plantar flexor strength is lacking, there may be lack of cushioning on the shin bone when a runner runs with a forceful heel strike landing pattern, and you may get more impact pressing on the shin bone. How do the ankles and plantar flexors become weak in heel strike runners who wear traditionally cushioned running shoes? Well, firstly, many heel strike runners don't really utilize their plantar flexor muscles as much as forefoot strike runners. Heel strike runners typically use their dorsiflexors, which is another group of muscles within the top of the foot that links up to the lower leg. The dorsiflexor muscles are one of the primary muscles that help pull the forefoot back to initiate heel strike during heel strike running. So the underutilization of the plantar flexors during running, during certain phases of gait in heel strike running, may explain why the plantar flexors may suffer some forms of strength deficits, which may allow for more impact to be sent up to the shin bone during heel strike running. Another reason for ankle plantar flexor weakness in heel strike runners who do run in traditional running shoes is that the cushion-heeled running shoe may reduce the sensory mechanisms that mediate plantar flexor strength. And for this reason, this is why many researchers are coming to appreciate the potential advantages of barefoot running, as barefoot running triggers immediate changes in neuromuscular functions that may help protect the shin bone from fracturing during running. For example, a study in the European Journal of Applied Physiology discovered that Neuromuscular sensory stimulation may automatically improve isometric strength while reducing muscle stiffness, and it turns out that the degree of sensory input during barefoot running that accompanies increased ankle and plantar flexor strength is significant. A 2014 study in the Scandinavian Journal of Medicine and Science and Sports demonstrated that sensory-rich neuromuscular facilitated exercises improved and maintained plantar flexor strength. And we well know that barefooters display higher levels of sensory inputs or nerve stimulation at the feet as compared to runners who wear thickly cushioned heeled running shoes. The form of sensory stimulation on the bottom of the bare feet when you are barefoot is a better way for the foot nerves to communicate to the nerves in the ankle joint and the knee joint and the hip joint. Exposure of the barefoot to the environment unleashes different stimuli, and this high volume of sensory stimulation acting on the bottom of the feet during barefoot running appears to manifest themselves in a way that involves a more concentrated engagement of the ankle muscles and the plantar flexor muscle groups. Not only that, when you run barefoot, you typically avoid misaligning your foot and ankle posture at touchdown. You land more four-footed or towards the front part of your foot, which recruits plantar flexor activity or demands, which ultimately helps you land more smoothly with the ground when you run barefoot. In general, when you run barefoot, you are, in an evolutionary sense, programmed to reduce impact naturally by landing on the forefoot first, not the heel first. And landing this way, this landing pattern, a forefoot strike landing pattern, modification switching from a heel strike to a forefoot strike landing pattern, when you run barefoot is protective. And as I just stated, landing with a forefoot strike employs greater use of the plantar flexor muscles at touchdown. So this is how running barefoot selectively reconfigures your forefoot strike landing pattern in a way that can fundamentally alter and reduce impact on the shin bone by keeping the plantar flexor muscle groups more engaged, more active, which may give you that added layer of impact absorption, and less impact may be amplified on the shin bone. This data bolsters the case that barefoot running training could be a very tactical method about how to correct ankle and foot strike mechanics to ensure that less impact penetrates the shins. Just to quickly reiterate, it is important to keep in mind that ankle weakness and plantar flexor weakness are risk factors for shin fracture development in runners and may derive from heel strike running while running in cushioned traditional stiff running shoes, because these types of running shoes seem to bring together many mechanical and physical elements that may make it harder for the shin bone to adapt to high volumes of running, and may also explain why a reduction in shin injuries in habitually shod heel strike runners are very mixed. Shin injuries remain a common running related injury despite high advances in running shoe technology, but again, much of the mechanisms that underlie strengthening the ankles and strengthening the plantar flexor muscles are sensory dependent. And when you run in thickly cushioned running shoes, you don't get that wide variety of sensory stimuli on the feet and in the ankle joint as you do when you run barefoot. Overall, these results may really incentivize barefoot running, and the data raises the possibility that by drawing on the sensory strengths when you are barefoot, the streams of sensory input channeled into the muscles of the foot and the ankle may effectively change the way the shin bone responds to chronic stress during running. It potentially reduces your risk of damage to the lower leg. Lastly, running with a forefoot strike landing pattern is as equally important as creating buffers against impact, shooting up the shin bone, by which the plantar flexors appear to be more activated in a forefoot strike landing pattern, priming these muscles to get stronger and may lead to better impact protection on the shin bone. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and for more information regarding barefoot running versus running in traditional running shoes, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And don't forget to check out my blog, runforefoot.com, for more information regarding the health and performance benefits of barefoot running as well as minimalist running. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Have fun out there on the roads and trails. Bye for now.